Hello, everyone. We are back and pressing on, recapping 2 chapters today as we continue to connect to the heart of God and examine the character of Jesus, the reason for this and every season. We are recapping Luke 15 and 16 today. And in Luke 15, we just went ahead and read the whole chapter. Because how do you choose? It's not exactly easy, period. But when it comes to these stories or this parable and its 3 segments, kind of hard to break it up. So we went ahead and read verses 1 through 32. And I actually managed to pick out a standout verse, though there could have been many. Verse 17. It says, "When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am, starving to death.'" So you would probably recognize this verse as one that comes from the segment of the parable that focuses on the lost son. And here, it kind of reveals what is going on, or that what eventually comes to the mind of this son after he's spent some time doing his thing and he's at rock bottom. And by the time he makes it back to his father, having come to this epiphany, we would have heard twice in verses 24 and 32, "He was lost and is found." Now, this is slightly different in nuance from the first 2 segments of the parable, which spoke of the lost sheep and the lost coin. And there were individuals, a shepherd and a woman, that went looking and hunting for these lost characters, as it were, the sheep and the coin. And they celebrated saying, "I have found my sheep. I have found my coin." But in this one, it just seemed to express a slightly different perspective to me. It seems to speak more to the son's state of mind. It says that he came to his senses and realized, what really am I doing? And twice it was repeated. Like I said, he was lost and is found. So I just wonder if this seems to speak to more of his state of mind that could have been in place before he left, predated his physical departure, but his being found did not necessarily represent physical rescue, but more of a personal, more complete understanding of who his father was and all that he had in him. He had left the very gracious and giving heart of his father to go pursue other things. And when he realized where it landed him, and he reflected on who his father was, he came to his senses. And I believe that was when his transition occurred from being lost to being found. Even as he was making his way back and finally reconnected, and his father embraced him wholeheartedly, his being found seems to be located in the fact that he finally realized what he had in his father, who his father was, how beautiful his father's heart was, and everything that he had given up by walking away. And so I thought that was quite an interesting way to think about it. And hopefully it's something that we can, ponder a little bit more, to embrace and just realize that it is God's beautiful heart. We can always come back to him, and hopefully it won't take all that he went through to recognize that, your Father of love is always there. But even if it does, your being found will be just as celebrated. And that's where I saw the heart of God. Salvation and celebration go hand in hand. God and all of heaven rejoices over one sinner who repents. That's what it says in Luke 15. And we can take that to the bank. Salvation and celebration go hand in hand. Over to Luke 16 now, We read verses 1 through 15 of this chapter, and verse 15 was the verse that stood out to me. It reads, "He said to them, 'You are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of others, but God knows your hearts. What people value highly is detestable in God's sight.'" My takeaway from that verse, the sentiment that came through for me is simply to live to please God. Living to please others and considering the pleasure of man, it's fickle. It changes. It's of a worldly standard. But we often justify ourselves and feel good about ourselves inappropriately by measuring ourselves against these worldly or man-made standards. That's not it. If our sense of justification is based on man's standards, then we are falling way short. We need to live to please God. That's what I got from that verse. And of what I saw about Jesus and his character, Jesus does not shy away from saying what needs to be said to whom needs to hear it. And he will call out the realities of the world, addressing what is the status quo or what's going on, and he raises the bar. And we see that here too. In verse 14, we see that the audience that needed to hear it, the Pharisees that were sneering at him and just didn't appreciate what he had to say, they were in his presence and he said it anyway. And so, as we are spirit-led, there may be times where we have to say something or another in the presence of people who need to hear it. That may be a difficult truth, but we've got to say it in love. And like I said, it must be spirit-led and not flesh of the flesh. I appreciate that about Jesus, that he is direct and he's doing it for our good. And so there we have it. That's a recap of chapters 15 and 16. And we are just about a week out from wrapping up our journey. And we're going to keep on learning, keep on growing, keep on going as we connect our heart to the heart of God and Jesus, the reason.